Everybody, it is nice to have you out here. Of course, I'm Anthony Baxter. I know that I've sent like pretty much all of y'all in here like a gajillion messages, and at this point, y'all may be tired of me, but trust me, I just want to make sure that y'all have all of the information that y'all need, and that you're able to get in contact with somebody to have your questions answered and all of that good stuff. So tonight, we'll keep everything short, simple, sweet, and to the point. This is a webinar about our secondary ed and world language ed master's programs. We'll kind of give you like a brief overview of the program. We'll talk about the teacher pledge, and I'll also go over some ways to help your application stand out. And then by the end, we can actually have some time for y'all to put some questions into the chat room. And me and my colleague Carly will actually answer those. So since y'all know me, of course, I'm the recruitment coordinator, Anthony Baxter. I'm going to allow my amazing colleague, Carly, to introduce herself, and we can go ahead and get the rocking and rolling.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Carly Marco. I manage the Teacher Pledge, and so I'll be talking about it a little tonight and answering your questions. Thanks, Anthony.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as y'all may know, everybody who's in this webinar and those of you who will actually be replaying this if you were unable to make it tonight, I'm certain that y'all know that now is an ideal time for you to actually get the ball rolling to become an educator and, get everything that you need in order to be certified to teach across the board, whether that's a public, private, or a charter school. Schools are looking for some highly qualified candidates. I mean, we see how things have been going within the past, I could say 4 or 5 years, but we'll just say in the past couple of decades with education. And we're at the point now where we really need more qualified candidates to get into these classrooms who truly care about making a difference on the lives of our students and the people who ultimately become, future adults and people who are going to make grand decisions in the future. And with that being said, the School of Education here at UW-Madison, we're committed to support you with, tackling that goal of becoming an educator, and not just becoming an educator, but also giving you some tools and skills as you continue growing as an educator throughout your career. And there are so many ways that we offer that support during the program and after the program. But one of those particular programs is actually a funding opportunity that we have. And I'll pass this off to Carly so she can talk about the pledge.
Yeah, hi. Do you want to go to the next slide, Anthony?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so you'll see the long title. We call it the Teacher Pledge, but really it's the UW-Madison School of Education Wisconsin Teacher Pledge Program. So it is a financial aid program. It's only here at the UW-Madison School of Education. It is fully funded by private donors and friends of the School of Education, and it started in fall 2020, and we're currently funded through summer 2030. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But here's the basic premise of how the Teacher Pledge works. The little line that we use is, we pledge to pay, you pledge to stay. So the point of the Teacher Pledge, the reason we have this funding, is because some donors really wanted to invest in supporting future Wisconsin teachers and keeping them in Wisconsin for the benefit of Wisconsin schools and our students. So basically, we use no interest loans. These are Teacher Pledge loans from the School of Ed, and we use these loans to pay the cost of in-state tuition plus seg fees, testing, licensure fees for you. So what does this mean practically? It means that if you are a Wisconsin resident, your full tuition is paid for by the Teacher Pledge in exchange for a teaching commitment. So your bill. If you are a non-resident, it's roughly 55% of your tuition bill is paid for, because the maximum Teacher Pledge offer is the cost of in-state tuition and seg fees. We also give you a little bump at the end of your program, about $400 extra to use for Praxis, your $125 Wisconsin license application, and all those little fees that add up when you're finishing up your degree and getting your license. So like you'll see, it says no payments. So Teacher pledge loans are fully forgiven in exchange for you completing a 3 to 4 year Wisconsin teaching commitment. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's what you pledge to do if you accept this money from us. You pledge to graduate from your teacher ed program. So as a master's student, it's important that you complete all of your teacher licensure requirements and actually graduate with your master's degree. They're not entirely one and the same. You do have to do both. You'll get licensed from Wisconsin DPI. These things are probably already on your checklist as a student, as a prospective student. The commitment is pretty flexible. I like to joke that the only part that's not flexible is the Wisconsin part because it's why the program was funded and created. So you do have to teach in Wisconsin. You don't have to stay in the same role, school, district for the full time. You do have to teach in a PK-12 Wisconsin school or early childhood. You'll see what this excludes specifically is like teaching at a college. We want you to be at a PK-12 school. It can be public, private, or charter, so that's important to know. And you do have to teach at least 75% full time. Most teachers are 100% full time. It gives you a little wiggle room to be part time ish if that's what you're looking for. You'll notice that after you graduate from the program, you have 5 years after you graduate to fulfill your 3 or 4 year commitment. And so you can fulfill that commitment right away in a row. You can fulfill that commitment sort of any way within those 5 years, but you do have to teach for full academic years. We can't count partial years. The last bullet is just something that you don't have to think about yet, but it's something I like to advertise. When you graduate, you're not faxing me forms from HR or having to deal with some AI robot. I am going to email you and say, hey, Anthony, my data shows that you taught at Toki Middle School. You taught Phi-Ed all year. Is this true? And you signing off on that virtually is what gets your forgiveness applied. So it's a really straightforward process to take the teacher pledge and to confirm your employment. Next slide, please. Okay, so Anthony's going to talk a little bit about this, but I think it's important to know the last thing about the teacher pledge that's, how do you participate? One, you have to be admitted to a teacher education program at the School of Ed. They're listed here. Anthony's going to talk about them. Two, you will have to complete the FAFSA annually. That's the free application for federal student aid. Now, the teacher pledge is not based on your financial status or your financial need. Everyone is eligible for the teacher pledge regardless of their financial status or need. However, you do have to be able to legally complete the FAFSA. And that means that you do have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident. And so I'm going to pass it back to Anthony to talk about our programs. Actually, Anthony, what's the next slide? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, it's for Anthony. Hey, Anthony, do you prefer that I answer the question in the chat now or after?
Let's grab them at the end because I got a feeling this.
Okay, folks, so I'm going to answer your questions. Please keep sending them. We're just going to wait till the end. Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you. Okay, so why exactly choose UW-Madison? Well, there's several reasons why you should choose our programs or things that will make our program a lot more attractive and stand out compared to other ones. But I'll say, the cohort model itself, it's extremely solid. Like, you may think that when you come in, you'll just be limited to like your individual experience, but trust me, when you're actually in these cohorts, depending on whichever secondary ed or world language ed program that you're in, you're going to feel supported by not only the faculty and staff that we have that are teaching you the methods courses, but also you're going to build that camaraderie and that family type of feel with your peers. And even though you may be in the secondary ed social studies program, you may end up getting some strong contacts with people across programs, and you'll be able to share your different experiences when you're actually doing your student teaching placements. And it's a space where it's like, I like to say it's pretty much like your training, like your basic training or whatever before you become a teacher. It's a space where we're teaching you these methods and strategies and techniques, but the student teaching placements and the community-based practicum, that's an opportunity for you to actually have some real experience. So by the time that you're actually about to come out of our programs, you're not going to feel like you're just being thrown into a lion's den without actually having the training to test your spear. No, you're going to have so much experience that, things are just going to come a lot natural to you. Not to say that there won't be learning curves once you actually start teaching, but you'll definitely be well off compared to other folks who, may not have that real experience if they choose like an online program or any program other than ours. And in addition to that, of course, we have some solid faculty members who are doing amazing work with research and everything in their own personal fields, but also the program itself. It's a 14-month accelerated programs, and it goes by just like that. Um, and the support that we offer is second to none. Kind of like how I was saying in that first slide where I was talking about we're here to support you in the development of becoming a solid educator. That's going to be while you're in the program, of course, but also we're here to support you even after you graduate. Like one thing in particular, we have something called ECTI, which is the Early Career Teaching Institute. And, the first few years after you graduate, and you're actually getting that experience, we're paying you a $500 stipend to come back and get some additional training and teaching. You'll be in different breakout sessions. We invite the National Teacher of the Year to give a keynote and to speak with you all individually. There are spaces where you can learn better strategies and techniques in these breakout sessions, and also it's a community building and networking event as well, because you're going to be communicating and networking with, people from your cohort and other cohorts that either finished before you or after you. And then two, we also have the teacher pledge. We're the only school that can say that we have something like that. And I think that truly separates us from a lot of other programs. And it's something, why you should consider our program. And as I was saying, of course, it's a 14-month program, which goes by extremely quick. And also something that's built into the coursework is actually that field work that I was talking about. Of course, when you first begin that first summer semester, there's going to be something called that. And also, I'm going to put something into the chat as well for everybody to see, which is pretty much a program timeline for everyone. So if you kind of like to get a glimpse of, how many hours you'll be doing this field work semester by semester, in addition to the class you'll be taking, just take a look in the chat. So you'll be doing that, and you're going to walk out of here with the master's in curriculum and instruction, and you'll also be certified to teach grades 4 through 12. Something else that is also about our program, we also have that dual certification in ESL, English as a second language. And that particular dual cert is for grades K through 12. And that's something that's really going to help you in your career, because listen, the world is continuously growing more diverse day after day, second after second. And I'm 99.9% certain that when you become a teacher, year to year, you are going to have a student in your classroom who didn't grow up speaking, reading, writing, or listening to English. So you coming into our program and us having something as awesome as this, offering this cert, even if you don't speak the language that your student speaks, I don't know if they speak Haitian Creole or if they speak Spanish or French or Polish or something like that. The fact that you are in this space where you can take these courses and learn how to approach giving this student the best education possible, even if they grew up speaking another language, that's really going to help you, and it's going to help you establish that solid relationship with the student, so they can feel a lot more comfortable with you when they're in that particular space. So this program is really here to help you in so many different ways beyond just you coming through and getting certified to teach. We're really trying to make sure that we hit every single base, so you'll feel well prepared by the time that you graduate and begin teaching. So now we'll go into admissions, because this is a pretty common thing. People are wondering, okay, I'm interested in the program, but what are you looking for? Okay, well, I'm going to keep this pretty short, simple, and sweet. Now, the baseline, you want to make sure that you have that 3.0 GPA and the coursework that you completed during undergrad. Now, if you happen to fall short of that 3.0 GPA, this is going to be the opportunity where you have to make other aspects of your application shine and stand out. Now, maybe there were moments in your undergraduate experience where, maybe the classes that you took that led to you having a lower GPA are not related to the subject that you want to teach at all. So let's say that you're interested in secondary ed, social studies, or English, and your grades in English and social studies were extremely solid throughout college. Now, if your math or chemistry grades weren't the best, and you may have had like a few C's and maybe one D here and there, we're also going to take that into account when we're looking at your application materials, because we have a holistic process, and we'll be able to see, okay, maybe Joe Schmo, maybe these grades are pretty weak in science, but Joe Schmo is showing some strong capabilities of becoming a future English or social studies teacher, because Joe Schmo's grades in the English and social studies related courses are rather strong. But I'll talk a little bit more about that, later on. You have to have a bachelor's degree. This is a secondary ed or a world language ed master's program. So listen, if you don't have your bachelor's degree already, I appreciate the fact that you're looking ahead and you're way ahead of the game, but please make sure that you have that bachelor's degree before you begin our program. We'll need an essay from you, which are your personal or academic statements. I'll touch on that in a little bit. And your letters of recommendation. And you also need a $75 application fee. We don't offer fee waivers. I know that that's a common question that I get, but we do not offer fee waivers for these particular programs. Now, what are we looking for? Well, pretty much what we're looking for is rather simple and to the point. We're looking for candidates who display clear desires to become teachers. The way that we're figuring out, if you do have that clear desire to become a teacher, is we're paying attention to the materials that you're submitting in this application portal. So when you're crafting your essays, the responses to the questions that's in the application portal, you want to make sure that you're pretty much answering the questions of why exactly you want to become a teacher. Express that clear desire. And also, we're taking a look at your degrees that you hold and the courses that you've completed. We're looking at your different work experiences. Maybe you've had some volunteer experiences where you've been working with the youth in some capacity. Maybe you have been teaching in some way, shape, or form. We're looking at all of these things. And in addition to that, we also want to make sure that you're meeting the requirements for the programs that you're applying to. Now, if let's say, for instance, you're interested in science, but you happen to major in gender and women's studies and English literature as your minor or your certificate. Now, if you're applying for science, but you have those particular degree backgrounds, you want to at least make sure that you've taken a great breadth of courses in the subject that you're applying to. So if you know that you didn't take an adequate amount of science, coursework, in whatever you were majoring in, more than likely you won't meet the requirements for that program. But don't count yourself out, listening to this if you happen to be that person, because I think it's best for you to get in contact with me. And, what I'll do, I'll get you in contact with the program coordinator that is over the program that you're intending to apply to. And they're going to be the ones to look at your transcript and, let you know if you meet the requirements. And if not, they'll give you some suggestions about what additional coursework you could take so you can meet those requirements when you apply at a later date. So some questions that I want y'all to keep in mind while you're crafting your responses to the questions that are in the portal and all of that good stuff. Like I was saying, like, why are you interested in becoming a teacher? Now, it'll be real difficult for us to understand if you're a clear candidate, if you're, crafting your responses and you're writing about 4 sentences about, something that has nothing to do with becoming a teacher at all. I don't know, maybe you're writing an essay about the lunch that you had that made a grand impact on your life or something like that. No, keep Everything's simple because that's going to prevent you from overthinking while you're in this process of completing your application materials. So keep these questions in mind so you don't have to experience that overthinking and pushing off completing the application. But in addition to why you want to become a teacher, talk about, what previous experiences you've had that have led you to pursue this career path. Maybe this has been something that you've known that you've wanted to do since you were younger, or maybe you had an experience that kind of like it nudged you internally, like you just felt something hit your spirit whenever you came across something, and maybe you're like, "Yep, this is for me." Talk about that. Talk about how you plan to make an impact in the classroom and on your future students. Because the main thing, of course, we want to make sure that you're qualified, but we also want to see if there's a clear interest in you wanting to work with the youth. That's a big portion of what being an educator is. When you're working with the youth, you want to make sure that you're impacting them in a positive way. In addition to that, I don't know if somebody just tried to come in. Okay, it worked. And also what has sparked your interest in this program? How does this program align with your future career goals, and how are you a good fit for this program? Maybe you've taken a look at some of the courses that you'll be taking in the particular program you're interested in. You can pull from that. It's pretty endless when you're crafting these responses. Now, your statement of purpose. These are some simple things, and this is rather to the point as well, just as I was talking about like those other responses to the questions in the portal. But what are your goals for graduate study and as a future educator? What are some specific topics of interest in our curriculum and in the teaching profession that you have? You can talk about some of the special recognitions or the honors that you have, like anything that's been related to the field of teaching. And when I say teaching, because I know that there's probably at least about three of you in here who've had some experience, whether you were coaching, whether you were tutoring, or whether you were mentoring, the youth. You can also talk about something related to that because that is teaching in some capacity. But yeah, make sure that you include that. Any other things, you can include that as well. We love to know about all of your interests and those previous memories and experiences that you've had, kind of similar like to how I was talking about in the previous slide. Now, your letters of recommendation. This is extremely important because the recommenders, they're really going to help us see who you could be as a future educator. Those recommenders can also speak highly about some of the skills that you have that they've seen, and they can let us know directly how those skills would translate into you becoming a future teacher. So your recommenders, you want to make sure that you're really intentional about choosing who exactly you are getting to write them. So some solid folks, I have some examples on the left, some former professors, of course, your employers. Now, some of y'all may be, career changes and maybe, far out from when the last time you were actually in school. So some of your professors, you may not even be in contact with them or have access to reaching out to them. So it's completely fine if you get, your employers, your supervisors and managers to write for you. You could reach out to some of your advisors or mentors to write for you. Also, tap into some of your colleagues as well. I'm certain that you have some colleagues and other people that you've worked with, whether they were at your job, some local community organizations that you've worked with. They know your personality, they know what you bring to the table, and they could certainly speak of your skills as a future educator. Now, you want to avoid those colleagues and people that if you know for a fact that they might not say the most desirable things about you. If Sally Beth that you worked with at Dale about 3 years ago, if you were thinking about getting a recommendation from her, but you know good and well you and her didn't really get along on the job, you might not want to get her to write your letter of recommendation. In addition to that, you probably don't want somebody that you barely knew to write a letter about you. Because again, we're using these recommendations to, look at your application and make our decisions holistically. So we want to see who exactly you are as a whole person. So yeah, make sure that it's a solid person that you're bringing. You want to avoid bringing in your mama. You want to, Miss Beth. You can. I'm sure she's a lovely person, but please don't get Aunt Beth or Grandma Ann to write your letter. Let's keep it professional and get somebody who can really paint that picture of how you be as a future educator. Anybody who would have a difficult time explaining that and talking about some of your skills and what you bring, I would avoid them completely. And kind of like how I was talking before, we do have a holistic application review process. So everything that I was saying about like what to do if you have that 3.0 GPA, just make sure to let all of these other things help you stand out some. Pay some closer attention to, your statement of purpose and make it compelling. Make sure that there are no grammatical errors in your essay responses. Make sure that resume or CV is up to date. You can submit your resume or CV, whichever one that you have and prefer to submit. So yeah, just keep in mind that we take a variety of factors into account while making our decisions. So take your time with it. Don't overthink it, but make sure that you take your time when you're putting your application materials together. Now, some key dates that I want y'all to remember. We've already passed the early decision deadline, but for my folks who are in here who are interested in future cycles, that early decision deadline is going to be January 15th. And folks who apply on or before that deadline, they're automatically considered for different private scholarships that we have within the School of Education. They're not guaranteed, but we have been able to provide several of our students with those scholarships. Now, we accept applications on a rolling basis after that early decision deadline. So I know a lot of people tend to have some anxiety surrounding submitting their application because they think about other graduate programs and how after that early decision deadline is pretty much closed. But no, we accept and review on a rolling basis. And that final application deadline, listen, May 30th is listed right there. But for your sanity, and for the sake of you wanting to have everything in order before the program begins that next month, I'll say you want to make sure that you have your application materials in at least by the end of April or that first week of May. May 30th is that cutoff deadline, but you want to make sure that you have, come on, friends, give yourself some time and some room to make sure that you have everything planned out and in order. So you're not scrambling and in a rush to make sure that everything is in order before orientation. June 10th, that's when we kick off that, the orientation for our world language ed and secondary ed programs. And you'll actually finish in August of 2027. So yeah, 14 months. It'll go by extremely quick. Once you get in, as soon as you blink, you'll feel like it's time for you to go across that stage, but you'll end up leaving our program a completely different person. A more well-rounded and prepared person for the path that you're about to take your next two steps on. So now is the time where we will allow y'all to put those questions in the chat and we will answer those.
Hey, Anthony, I'll just start because they do start with some teacher pledge and we'll go back and forth a little.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so Riley asks, is there a requirement for the number of months or years you have to be a Wisconsin resident to qualify for in-state tuition? The short answer is yes. This is a very strict process, and it is exclusively with the Office of the Registrar. So I just dropped a link it's called Residency for Tuition. There's a lot of detailed information that you need to review, and you can also just reach out to them and explain your situation, and they'll give you an answer about whether they anticipate you will be awarded in-state tuition or not. Typically, they make that decision after you have applied. Okay, the next question from Liz is, you keep saying 3 to 4 years, which is it? So Liz is referring to the 3 to 4 year teacher pledge teaching commitment. Great question. So long story short, if you want a 3-year teacher pledge commitment, so you're teaching off your teacher pledge loan in Wisconsin, you're completing that in 3 years, you have to do one of two things. You have to either teach in a high need subject or you have to teach in a high need school. And so I'm actually going to drop in the chat the FAQ because you can scroll down and see what is a high need school, what is a high need what is a high need school, what is a high need subject. And long story short, typically it's going to be Wisconsin public school. You'll see in the directory of high need schools, there's over 2,000 Wisconsin schools that are considered high need. And you'll also see in the list of high need subjects, some of the subjects available in our CNI program. So high need subjects in the state of Wisconsin would include special education, world language education, math, science. The subjects you won't see on that list that are in our CNI program are English and social studies. But that's okay. You can still get that 3-year commitment by teaching in a high need school in the directory, and you can find that directory in the FAQ. Let's say you end up teaching in a private school that's not high need, and you're teaching in a lower need subject like English. You are still fulfilling your teacher pledge commitment. You just have 4 years you have to complete for 100% loan forgiveness. So Francesca asks, if someone already has a master's degree, would they still be eligible for this program? Now, I'm not sure if you're asking if they would be eligible for the teacher pledge or if they would be eligible to apply to the master's program. I can speak for teacher pledge that yes, you would still be eligible for the teacher pledge program, or another way to word it is having another master's degree does not make you ineligible to take the teacher pledge for this program. Now, Anthony, can you answer this question as if she's asking about if she can get into the CNI, like one of our master's programs?
Yeah, absolutely. Francesca, you can have about 50 master's degrees, and if you're interested in this program, you are more than welcome to apply for this program. There's been people who have one master's. There's even been people who already have PhDs who have applied to these programs within the past couple of years. So yes, you'll definitely be eligible if you already have a master's degree.
Love it. Okay, so Ivy, and I might be saying your name wrong, but Nataporn also asked, hey, I'm an international student. It is correct that you're not eligible to take the teacher pledge. What other financial aid opportunities are available for me? So as Anthony mentioned, for this cycle, we have already passed that priority date, January 15th, that would have put you in the consideration for receiving scholarships. I'll be frank, graduate school financial aid is very limited, and it is very limited to people who are US citizens or permanent residents. One thing you can do is you can, of course, search WISH, the Wisconsin Scholarship Hub. If you just Google UW-Madison WISH, you can find a variety of scholarships that you may or may not be eligible for within the School of Ed and without the School of Ed. You can also look for private scholarships. There aren't any TA positions that you would be able to take associated with this master's program, and there are not tuition waivers. Anthony, could you answer the question about extending the program?
Now, so if you do have to actually, that's gonna that's gonna depend on the circumstances in which you have to extend the program. Um, so right off the bat, I kind of want to say, yeah, yeah. Let me get back to you on answering that question in particular, because that's kind of going to be on a case by case thing. Now, if something occurs to where you can't fulfill the requirements of the program within the 14 months, there is going to be some flexibility for you depending on what it is. But if this is an issue where it's like your grades, then that may be a whole nother thing that we can talk about.
Great. Okay. Max asked, one, where are teachers needed most in Wisconsin geographically? This is a great question. We do know that most people who come to UW-Madison love to stay in the Madison area. Anthony and I are the same. We can't blame you. We love it here. It's a great place to live. Excuse me. You can fulfill your Wisconsin teacher pledge commitment at any school, any PK-12 school in Wisconsin. But there are some areas that are higher need. As you might imagine, rural areas of Wisconsin are typically geographically needy areas when it comes to teachers, but it really depends district by district, city town by city town. What we can say is that we have an incredibly high Anthony might even be able to give us a percentage rate of people who are able to find full-time teaching positions in their area. We have over 600 Teacher Pledge alumni, so people who've taken the Teacher Pledge and graduated since it launched. And I have heard from maybe 2 of them who are struggling to find a position, and that's because they're teaching a subject like Mandarin and hoping to stay in one specific city. So this is to say you are needed all across the state of Wisconsin. It's really up to you where you want to teach. And like I mentioned before, we often think of teacher need by subject. And so, like I mentioned, some of the neediest subjects are special education, 100%, science, math, world language. Anthony, could you ask that question about deferring if you are apply and are accepted?
Yeah, got you. So we don't do deferrals with admissions decisions, but what you could do, you can submit all of the same materials. If we've made that decision and we've admitted you already, but you're unable to come with this particular cycle, you can use the same application materials, have the same recommenders provide us with the same thing, and more than likely you're gonna be guaranteed admission. But Max, if you know for certain that you won't be able to do it this particular cohort, I say save your money. Save that $75 and apply when you know that you're ready. I would love to have you apply to offer you that, for us to offer you that decision. But I also want to make sure that you're doing something that makes sense for you, especially like something financially, considering how I'm not counting anybody's pockets, but I just want to make sure that you're doing what makes sense for you.
And related to finances, I think it's important that everyone on this call know that our current funding for the Teacher Pledge lasts through summer 2030. What this means practically is that if you are entering one of our 14-month graduate programs, like we're talking here right now, you would have to enter that program no later than summer 2029 to be guaranteed Teacher Pledge funding. Now, we will be transitioning to other robust forms of financial aid. We're still figuring out what comes after the Teacher Pledge. But as far as money in hand for the Teacher Pledge program specifically, you're going to want to start no later than summer 29 in your program if you wish to benefit. Anthony, will you talk about fieldwork?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Thea. She says, "How does the full-time field work experience work with placements, compensations, etc.?" Okay, so that full-time field work that you're referring to, that's going to take place in that final spring semester where you'll be doing 40 hours of field work. And what's going to happen is that we're actually going to pair you with the host teacher, and you'll be working with them here within MMSD. With compensation, there is no compensation for this field work experience. This is pretty much like an internship where you're actually able to get some of that real world experience. So unfortunately, there is no compensation. And this question actually brings up something which I should, which I feel like is important to bring up. Oftentimes, a lot of people ask me if they can work full time while doing this program, especially with doing the field work. Unfortunately, no. Given like the heavy course load and the student teaching placements and all of that good stuff, it will make it completely impossible for you to work full time. And most of our students, they do work part time on the weekends. So just keep that in mind when you're applying for this program and getting ready for everything to start.
Nice. Anthony, are we sharing this presentation? Like, will there be a follow-up email?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the follow-up email, you're actually going to receive the recording of this, and you'll have everything to where you can review this. Just give it, I'll say it should take maybe about 2 to 3 days, so everybody can get everything in their emails. And even if you're watching this, even if you have some friends who weren't able to make it, you'll still have access to this as long as you signed up for this webinar.
Okay, awesome. So Ethan asks, once admitted, is there anything you have to do for Teacher Pledge beside FAFSA, or does it automatically kick in if you mark it on your application? So no, the Teacher Pledge, there will be nothing on the FAFSA about the Teacher Pledge. The FAFSA is a generic federal form that UW-Madison receives, and then they personalize your financial aid package using that general data that you have submitted. So long story short, if you've ever accepted another student loan or received a financial aid package, you know that you get a few options, right? There might be a federal loan there. Your financial aid package will say teacher pledge loan, an amount as an option, and you will have to complete steps to accept that. I can actually link some of that information. If you are starting the CNI program or the special ed master's program this summer, I do have a document that is hyper specific about folks who need to complete which FAFSAs to get you through to graduation. So if anyone wants to email me directly because you're like, hey, I'm starting the CNI program this summer, I really want hyper specific details, shoot me an email and I'll send you that document. I'm also just going to drop in the chat. There is a web page called How to Take the Teacher Pledge that does include some information that might answer your questions. And if that doesn't answer your questions, please do email me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat. My name's Carly Marco, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so basically, long story short, Ethan, you do have to actively opt in to accepting your teacher pledge loans, and then they automatically disperse towards your balance, which means the money drops and pays all of your balance if you're a resident or a portion of your balance if you're a non-resident. Anthony, it looks like Ivy is asking about, is there an interview as part of applying?
Not at all, unless now okay. So say for instance, you're an applicant who maybe you're applying to, let's say, the world language ed program, and you may only have like a certain amount of courses that you've taken, and we just want to make sure, like, hey, well, how exactly are you meeting the requirements for this program? We may schedule a time just to kind of like chat with you. Jason Smith, the program coordinator, may reach out to you to just kind of chat with you a little bit, just to see like where you're at, to figure out if you're a fit for the program and that you're qualified for the program. But as far as like an interview, no, there is no interview process.
All right. So Ethan also asked us, Anthony, about, is there a place to view the full academic calendar with, yeah, let me link you to the academic calendar. And then Anthony, do you know anything about further information about secondary ed scholarship information specific?
Yeah, so you won't find those on the Wish Hub because that's pretty much all in-house, those scholarships that we give out. So you may not see any more of those scholarships on the Wish Hub, because I know that a lot of them have been taken off since January. But yeah, the ones that we give, that's pretty much in-house, and you won't find those on the Wish Hub.
Yeah, and so your application that is due March 1st is for the secondary program to review and then consider you for scholarships that really the secondary program like owns. But you can also go to Wish and search for any scholarships across UW-Madison that you might be interested in applying for that are not just from the teacher ed program you're joining. Okay, how does ESL certification work? Is there additional coursework or field experiences? This is from Jason, Anthony.
Yeah, so that's those courses that you have to take for that ESL dual cert. That's pretty much built into the curriculum. So you'll still complete the program on time, and there's not going to be any additional like field work that you have to do that isn't already worked into the curriculum. So you won't have to worry about, is this going to take me like an extra 2 to 3 months? No, because that's pretty much built into how everything is structured.
All right. Certifications and exams to become a teacher, praxis. Could you speak to that a little bit, Anthony?
Yeah, got you. Okay, so this is actually kind of something that I just went over today. So let's say, for instance, you're interested in, okay, so you're applying for the English program, and also you want to teach social studies. There's gonna have to be something that you have to take to make sure that you're able to teach social studies, although you're going for English. And that praxis that you're going to have to do is just us, making sure that you are qualified to teach that. And also, depending on how you do in this program, you might have to take that praxis to make sure that you're qualified to teach this subject. But yeah, that is something that is done within this program.
Okay. And then Ethan, you will apply for licensure as well once you're finished with the program. And that's something that the Teacher Education Center, where Anthony and I work, our colleague will help you with that process. He also helps folks if they're looking to obtain licensure outside of the state of Wisconsin. Typically, we recommend you always get a Wisconsin license and then go from there. So Caroline said, are students able to continue working while in the program? Anthony mentioned not full-time. Most students in the program work part-time, nights or weekends as they're able. It is really challenging. Anthony, do you remember how many credits per semester? I know they're full-time in the fall and spring.
Yeah, so actually so I put into the chat a timeline, but just in case you joined late, I'm going to go ahead and put this back in here.
Okay. Yeah, I know they're full-time in the fall and spring. I think the first summer is like 4 to 7 credits, and the second summer is about 12, or second summers, maybe it's the other way around. Anthony, let me know if you can find that credit load. I'll move on to the next question.
Okay.
Okay, Liz said, how much does in-state tuition end up being for the whole program? It's roughly $22,000. So again, this is in-state tuition. The teacher pledge would pay the full amount if you are a resident. It pays the same amount for non-residents. Of course, that's just not your full bill if you're a non-resident. Who should I contact for further advising, specifically for teaching Spanish? Anthony, do you want to drop in Jason's email for Wilson?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go here.
You owe a tuition bill, but there's no down payment related to your acceptance. Am I missing anything about that, Anthony?
No, you're good to go.
Okay, cool. Caroline asked, the slides mention an essay. Is that in every specific program, and are there any prompts?
Yeah, so it's pretty much okay. So those questions that I had in that previous slide, the questions that are in the portal, that's pretty much what you're gonna answer about like why you're interested in this program. And it's gonna ask you maybe about some experiences that you've had that have led you to want to become a teacher. But yeah, also I'm gonna draw. Sorry, I was putting Jason's contact info in there. And that just completely threw me out. Carly, what was the question again?
He just dropped for the person who asked about additional advising regarding Spanish. Jason Smith is the person you want to talk to, and Anthony just dropped their name in the chat. And then we were talking about, Anthony, are there prompts like for the essays, and are they specific to each program? What they have
Yeah, so they're pretty much gonna be the same thing. Like that academic statement and that personal statement, that's gonna be pretty much the questions that I just told you to answer, like why you want to become a teacher, how you plan to make an impact. They look the same in each of our secondary ed program and in the world language ed program too, but it may ask you something different according to the program that you're applying to. So it may have a question that's more related to you teaching a language or you teaching like science or a math program, but at the core, it's pretty much like it's asking the same thing of you.
Unfortunately, Anthony, I can't hear you right now. I'm going to move to the next question and hopefully you come back. Okay, if you already have teaching experience or are actively teaching, would your fieldwork hours still look the same? This is Francesca. Yes, so the fieldwork experiences, I believe you have some say in what you might be interested in focusing on, of course, based on your subject, but also based on your method of transportation. Do you have a car? What side of town do you live on? Are you a public transit user? Things like that. But you would not have reduced fieldwork hours or different expectations or requirements based on your past teaching experience. Okay, one more teacher pledge question, then we'll check in with Anthony again. Okay, nice. He's switching his mic. Hannah asks, is it other scholarships or is it one or the other? This is a great question because, as you all might know, Teacher Pledge pays tuition and segregated fees up to in-state. That's not your full cost of attendance, right? Cost of attendance also includes things like housing, books, transportation, the costs of being a human while in this program beyond tuition. And so the short answer is you can receive Teacher Pledge and scholarships. So let's say you're a Wisconsin resident and you know the Teacher Pledge is going to take care of your bill. And let's say you've been fortunate enough to be awarded a scholarship. Because the Teacher Pledge is taking care of your bill, that frees up the scholarship to come to you as a refund to use for housing, books, whatever you need it for. This is also true of federal loans. Let's say you're a Wisconsin resident and you take the Teacher Pledge so it pays your tuition bill, and then you need money to live. You typically will be offered a federal loan as well that you could accept and use that money because it'll come to you. It'll be in your pocket. Now, as a non-resident, you still can do Teacher Pledge and scholarships, right? It all stacks up. You just might not receive a refund because your bill is higher than a resident. All right. Anthony, are you back?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. That's
Okay.
awesome. Okay, good.
Cool.
I want you to talk a little bit. Ivy was asking about post-grad experiences for international students, especially when it comes to visa considerations and employment in the US.
Got you. Ivy, now that is going to be challenging for y'all to navigate, because it's really going to boil down to if a school is going to, be willing to sponsor you with the visa for employment. I know that a lot of international folks have struggled with that. So this is it's really going to boil down to like what are your expectations and what you're looking for out of this particular program, as far as like why you're interested in it. So you really want to weigh your options because, and actually, I think it would be nice for you to schedule a meeting with me and any international student who may be in the call or watching this on replay. I think it'd be great for you to schedule a time to chat with me either via email or via Zoom so we can talk about that because we want to make sure that the program is also going to work for you in the long run. So definitely keep these things in mind.
All right. So Ethan said, where would we look to apply for the in-house scholarships? You mentioned they were different. So when you apply, you're actually, and if you hit that deadline, that January 15th deadline, you're automatically considered for those in-house scholarships. And then Grace asks, when will we find out about the scholarships? Anthony, I think it's March-ish.
Yeah, and they're actually still making decisions right now. So you should
Okay.
know within the next month.
Okay, great. All right. We made it through the questions. We have about 5 minutes left. If anyone wants to quick drop any final questions or even unmute for a moment to get it out, just now's the time.
Absolutely. And I also have some of our contact information on this slide right here. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. If you need me to put you in contact with the program coordinator or anybody, just don't hesitate to reach out to us. Ethan put, is parking available for students at the education building? Yes. And by the time that y'all come on campus to take the classes, the parking is free on the meters. So you'll be good to go.
Yeah, one thing I will say, just because Anthony's so positive, parking can be a challenge on campus because we are in a city center. But typically, like Anthony mentioned, there are many different options. You're probably not going to be in a parking ramp at the exact building where you're attending classes, but you will definitely be able to find some parking on campus. Anthony, Caroline asked, what's the acceptance rate?
I do not have like an exact percentage, but I can say that compared to other graduate programs across campus, this one is a lot. Hmm. I don't want to say easier to get into, but it's a lot less competitive compared to other programs. As long as you're meeting the requirements, um, and you're showing that clear interest in wanting to become a teacher and work with the youth, I say you won't really struggle with getting accepted into this program. And if you're worried about if there's going to be spaces, I don't anticipate us running into a space where it's like, okay, we're over capacity for this semester for this particular program. So I think that you'll be good to go. But if you do want actual percentages, feel free to send me that question via email and I can do my best to find the answer to that for you.
I would agree with that. And I think it speaks to the fact that UW-Madison, the School of Education, is really committed to getting highly qualified teachers into Wisconsin classrooms. And that's why the Teacher Pledge was created. That's why we're so aggressively recruiting people into our programs is we really want the best teachers in our state, and we're really hoping that it's going to be you. All right, final call.
Going once, going twice, going thrice.
All right. Well, we really hope that you reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to answer any other questions you have that you might not have thought of today or didn't want to ask in a group setting. So, anything else you want to end on, Anthony?
No, that's pretty much it. Just, feel free to, reach out to me. And if you do reach out to me, I can send you my Calendly link and we can set up a time for us to chat and all of that good stuff. And keep in mind that this recording will go out to your email within the next 2 to 3 days so you can play it back. And yeah, y'all have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you all take care.
All right. Bye, everybody.